Alright everybody, welcome back. This is Dark Earth Customs. My name's Joshua, and it's time to get back to the golf cart. I ordered a carburetor. It has arrived. It is just a cheap Amazon replacement, but it's got high ratings, so I'm hoping it'll work. So why don't we get back to it, and we'll get this carburetor installed and see if the golf cart will start. Alright, so here we are back at the engine. I did take the liberty off camera to install new fuel lines. I got new fuel lines and clamps and a fuel filter and all the lines plumbed for the fuel, and they do work. It was kind of a tedious, boring job, so there really wasn't any reason to record it. If you need fuel lines, you just get the right size fuel line, cut it to right length, and put it in place. Alright, so it's time to take the carburetor and go ahead and put it on and see if we can get this started. Well, that's a problem. It looks like this bolt right here is just a bit too long. So let's go ahead and get that out. Maybe I can shorten that bolt a bit. Let's see if I thread this out some. Will the carburetor still fit with the bolt and maybe a lock washer? And then I'll just have to cut that bolt down to get it to the right size. And it does. So what I'm gonna have to do now is get this bolt out and cut it to the right size, and then I will be back. Alright, so I got that bolt ground down. Now let's go ahead and get it threaded back into the block here. Quarter turn at a time. Yeah. Okay, and then we'll take the lock washer and the nut and put it back on this side. Nice and flush. All right. Now, let's get back to the game at hand. Alrighty. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this curb on here, which should be extra special, fun, tight area. As you can see, there is literally almost no working area whatsoever to put any of this stuff on, much less a nut that needs to be turned in said working area without dropping said nut. Like that. Okay. That fell on the ground. And it looks like we also have one on this side. I wonder if I can get this one in first. Or I wonder if I can get either of them in at all. Yeah. You know, there are just some engines that you want to smack the engineers on. You want to find the engineer that designed the engine. Just give them a good smack upside their head and ask them why. Why did you build it this way? Why did you build it so the only way you can get to the actual parts is by having the engine out? Come on. All right, there's one. That was fun, wasn't it, guys? Guys and girls? Okay, now that my back is completely ruined from being bent over like the hunchback, let's go for nut number 2. All right. Well, that was a lot easier than the other one. Okay, now it's time to tighten it down, if that's even at all possible. Yeah, boy, what I would give to know where my 10 millimeter quarter inch is right about now. Let me see if I can go find that, because I don't see any way to get this done without having that socket. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, I'm back. Well, I didn't find the 10 millimeter socket, but what I did find is this 10 millimeter nut driver attachment. Needless to say, there is pretty much no room here either to get that in there. It's hitting the top of the carburetor. So this is going to be kind of a little fun life lesson, I guess, to try to figure out how to do this and get this tight when you can't even get anything in there to tighten it. Now, I don't, yeah, see, even the closed end isn't going to get in there. So how on God's green earth, when you have no space to get something tight, are you supposed to tighten it? See, there's plenty of space over here. And just leave that just snug right now. Don't want to crank down on one side and not the other. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting scenario. Well, I just can't seem to figure out why. Maybe a needle nose. Alright, so I got a needle nose here, an extra long one. Maybe I can turn the nut just enough like that and do that in between every turn so I can crank this down. Turn it 1/8 of a time at a time. And it's pretty snug, it's getting there. It doesn't seem to be that I can turn it anymore with the needle nose, which is, well, not the greatest. And that's pretty tight. Let me go ahead and tighten this other side. Okay, that's good and tight. I think that's probably pretty snug. Okay, so the difference on this carburetor versus this carburetor is the choke. Right here is the choke on the side, but on this carburetor it's on the top. Now, fortunately, it looks like the folks at E-Z-Go had anticipated this change already, because they mounted a hole over here for the choke to go through. That way it can go through here and then be mounted like that. And the problem is, which I guess really isn't a huge problem, is just feeding this cable around. This cable's a little bit too long. I imagine on the other carts the cable's a little bit shorter. So I may have to zip tie this cable here. Sorry. I may have to zip tie the choke cable to the cables that are already existing here. That way it doesn't get too much of a bend in it. And it's unable to work properly. But first, let's just start by getting the choke cable connected. I can't remember if this was an 11. Yep. It's turning the... Looks like it's turning the whole assembly. So if that's the case, we'll just take and use the pliers here and bite down on the cable so it doesn't twist it. Just like that. Choke cable still works. Could use a little bit of lubricant. I guess I will look into that. I don't know, any of you guys that work with cable like this, whether it's a bike cable or a car or anything, know that this braided cable, once you pull it out of its, see, it's got a, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a couple strands that are just longer than the others. And once you pull it out of this sheath, it sure isn't the easiest to get it back in, and sometimes it doesn't go back in at all. So what'll probably have to happen is I'll have to use some lubricant, and it'll wick up inside here. It'll wick up inside the cable and lubricate it there, because I don't see any other way to do this other than that. And for the choke here, all I need to do is pull this set screw out, which they used a Phillips for. I would rather use proper English. I would rather use an actual set screw, but I don't know if I have one that is this thread. So we'll take a quick look here. Oh, this is pretty long. Yeah, I don't have a set screw that size, so this is going to have to work the way it is for now. Alright, so I backed that out, and now I will just put the cable inside there like that, and then we'll go ahead and thread this Phillips back in. And what this is doing is the cable's running through here, and the set screw is threading in and pinching down on this cable so it can't move. Now generally you don't want to torque on these very much, but what you do want is to make sure that it's not going any further. So yep, now the choke is working. It looks like I might have a little rust on this side of the cable, which is probably what's hanging up a little bit, but it's working. That's a good start. Okay. Now, I haven't ordered a new throttle cable yet. Now you can see that this throttle cable is in just absolutely brand new, pristine condition, like it just came from the factory. You know, that's how the cables come. They come unthreaded, and you just have to braid them back together yourself. Anyways, I don't know how a person could even unbraid a cable like this unless they're grinding on it. But what we will get is we will get this cable set in. A little bit of playing that butterfly inside there, but not too awful bad. Okay, well, before I crank on it too much more, we're going to start on the, set these horrible things aside for a minute, and we're going to work on the fuel, because this is not going to fit in here properly. Okay, so I believe this is also a 10, which it is. All right. So, as you can see, the fuel inlet is pointing horizontally, and on the old one, it's pointing vertically, and I need to change that. Now, fortunately, I made sure that when I ordered a carburetor, it offered this adjustable fuel inlet. Now you can see there's a red gasket on either side, and this just swings in whatever direction you need it to swing, and then you just tighten it back down. So now that it's vertical, just like it was before, we're going to go ahead and snug it down just like that. Put the fuel line on just like that. And it's the right size fuel line, but there's a lot of wobble in that, so I think I'm going to have to probably put a clamp on that, an actual hose clamp, instead of the spring clamp. So let's go ahead and get this spring clamp off. And these are called spring clamps because that's exactly what they do. These, come on, focus. And you can see that when you pinch these tabs together, it enlarges the hole. And then the spring pressure, because this is spring steel, clamps back down. But because this is a looser line, I'm going to use a regular hose clamp. And I'm going to put it on just like that. So we put it over the hose, put the hose over the fitting, push the clamp down, and then we use a 5/16 for all small hose clamps like this size. They're going to be a 5/16 head on the screw. And then we'll just bite down on this so it clamps it in place. Now, these are another thing, don't over torque them. A lot of people say stop when it gets too snug. You don't want to see rubber. You don't want to see rubber pushing through all these little grooves. And that's pretty much the correct assumption. There is on this, I did turn it down a little tighter than I wanted, but that's because there was so much slop between this hose and that fitting. I haven't gotten a clamp down here yet either. That's not a super big issue. Let's take a quick look here. Alright, so you saw there was fuel coming out. Okay, fuel pump's working. So that'll fill the carburetor. Now, it's not really necessary yet to clamp down on this, but I do want to take a look. Okay, so that's closed and that's open. Close, open. All right. So what we have here is a pusher instead of a puller on the throttle. Now, if I remember right, I think several of these little cable nuts, but the problem is pushing this open. That's another reason I'm going to have a throttle. Another reason I'm going to have to have a good throttle cable, because I'm not sure if I can get this little cable nut on there if it's not a good cable. However, that doesn't matter right now. Right now, in this position, the carb is wide open. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over just quickly to see if I can get this started. All right. So normally when I push on the gas pedal, that engages the starter, and that would normally be from this. It would normally be closed, and you push on the gas and it opens it up. However, because the cable is all messed up, we're gonna just try to manually operate this for right now. And you see plenty of fuel in the fuel line, and we're gonna see if we can get this thing to fire off, or if there's yet another problem. Okay, so that sucked all the fuel down. All right. What we need is for the fuel to start filling up again. I'm wondering if this fuel pump here is a little bit weak. It might be. Regardless, I'm going to see if I can get a little bit of starting fluid, and we'll see if we can get this started. All right, starting fluid. Starting fluid is made from ether, which is a highly flammable liquid. Should not be used in fuel-injected vehicles and carbureted vehicles. It's been used, but it should be used in moderation, because if you use a whole bunch of starting fluid on an engine, it is possible to blow the engine up. Let's see what we get here. Okay, guys, let's try this again. Oh, I tried to. It doesn't appear that it's getting fuel just yet. It's possible it could be too much air in the system. Yeah. Well, it looks like maybe the fuel pump's not in the best shape. I wonder if I can rig it just to see if the carburetor is going to work or not. I thought the fuel pump was in better shape than it was, but if it's not pumping gas out like that, it should be gushing gas out of that hose. So why is it not doing that? Well, I suppose I can try replacing the fuel filter. I know that fuel filter is good, but anything's possible, I guess. Alrighty. Well, let's take the clamps off. Some of these filters are not always the best, but we'll start here. That was cute. Saw that end of that fuel filter just bend. That's a weakness. But let's see if it pumps. That's unusual. Okay. Well, it is not pumping fuel whatsoever. So that's the next problem. Okay, well, since we're not pumping fuel the way we should, and since there's nothing in the filter when there should be, I guess that means the fuel pump has to come off and we have to look at that. I wish there was a way I could test just to see if the carburetor works. but there really isn't, because I need gas that's mixed as 128 to 1 mixed fuel. Let's see, maybe I can get the engine to prime itself. Nope. Okay. Well, I guess we'll stop here and pick it up in the next video with me disassembling the fuel pump, because we need to see what's going on in there. Alright guys, so obviously the carburetor isn't getting fuel. The fuel pump doesn't seem to be working right. So I'm going to call it here. And I'm going to have to get on the fuel pump, and I will do that in the next video. I'm going to go ahead and take that off, and we'll take a look at it to see what's going on with it, and see if I can get the fuel pump to pump fuel so we can get the carburetor tested. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and I will see you all later.